you initially said that you moved from kind of a negative risk dimension to more of a positive dimension on opportunities. And you have also talked about in your work about social innovations. So if you format it as risk, opportunities and innovations, you have used the term sustainable innovations.
Yes.
What do you really mean by that? And how would it apply in this Indian context?
Innovation is critical to any economy. Many of the innovations that help create new wealth are not necessarily sustainable. They create new wealth today, but they do so at the expense of tomorrow. So sustainable innovation has to be one that is both adding value today and doing it in a way that protects the interests of the future. So this is a very important thing because we've got an explosion in innovation going on in India. We've just done a big study of what's happening in India around innovation. We're launching our report shortly on Innovation Nation. But the real trick is how much of that innovation protects value for people over time, as well as creates wealth for people in the short term. So to give you an example, there is a huge amount of new building going on here in India, enormous amount of construction. Many of the new buildings are not being built to the highest standards of energy consumption, water consumption, waste management, sustainable materials. They're still being built to quite old-fashioned and irresponsible standards, if you like. So the construction industry in India has a huge set of opportunities now to bring forward much more sustainable construction techniques, materials, energy saving, all of these different things. We've looked a lot at what Infosys has been doing, for instance, in terms of its own campuses and how Infosys has pioneered a very exciting way to new build, office build, which has dramatically reduced waste and carbon and energy consumption. So the knowledge is there, the opportunity is there. We don't yet see the determination to make that standard across the whole industry. It's single issue success stories rather
than
than
kind of a project.
Exactly.
Rather than a way of being.
A way of being.
So coming to this way of being, there are many standards, many frameworks, and regulation is also getting tighter now. But these are all external drivers and motivators. But there's something like ultimately what happens to organizational culture, say for sustainability and innovation, or sustainable innovation. What are the 6 critical success factors for an organization to build that culture within their employees, stakeholders, value chain, everywhere?
Our conclusion after 15 years of working with companies is very simple. It's the values of that company that make sustainable development real for people. If they're just pursuing it for reduced cost, increased profit opportunity, and not really thinking about the deeper ethical and responsibility type issues, then it's not going to last. It's not going to create the change that we need. It has to be the values. It has to be the place where a company resonates with.
For its own sake.
For its own sake. It has to have a deep, value-based approach to this for it to last and to make a real difference. And you can see that in the way companies deal with their supply chain, in the way they talk to their customers, work with their customers, in their interaction in the community. You can easily keep a community quiet by writing a check to make sure they don't cause trouble. But that isn't what real sustainable development looks like from a community perspective. You have to find a way of engaging with that community and helping them create the longer term value for themselves. So the hallmark of success for us is what are the values that drives this inside a company? What is the quality of leadership?
See, when you talk about values, and that's spoken very easily by many companies, that values are important. But they all hang on some kind of vision statement there. what about living those values? How do you see it manifest, and how do you create the whole experience of value?
So we're very critical of companies that talk about values in terms of things like performance, professionalism, even innovation. These are not values. These are behaviors. These are business behaviors which you would hope that every company would demonstrate. Values go much deeper than that. They go to the way in which a company relates to its employees, to care, compassion, long-term responsibility, relationship with the natural world, not just managing the natural world more responsibly, but what is the relationship between a company and the natural world? And when we talk about values, we're talking about a deeper level of meaning, of purpose inside a company, not the
just
business
before coming to
behaviors.
that, I really want to come to this idea of purpose and what is the source of all that. But when we talk about innovation, somehow it has got stuck with product innovation or service innovation. But deeper processes that drive the innovation in processes, like let's say ownership, governance in a company, and behavior in a company, where interactions with people, transactions manifest that culture of values.
Yes.
So what about process innovation?
Much harder to do. Companies normally find this much more complicated, because it means you have to give away more of the agenda to other people. To get really good process innovation that changes the way a company behaves, you have to reduce your defensive barriers. You have to open yourself up to external scrutiny and criticism. You have to be much more sharing in what it is that you're trying to do. And a lot of companies are still very defensive about their sustainability. They don't really want to open up in that kind of way. So I look, for instance, at the stakeholder engagement of a big company, for instance, in the pharmaceutical sector called Novo Nordisk, which has succeeded by literally opening itself to all of its different stakeholders and said, we have to make this work together. It's very risky for companies to do that because they don't always get the messages that they want to hear. They often get quite complicated, challenging messages that it's not easy to deal with. So for me, this process innovation is very important, and companies don't usually recruit the right kind of people to do that kind of inclusive.
So it's about working on people, future talent, development of leaders.
It's about getting the kind of people who understand that value for a company depends as much on relationship as it does on profit. And too many companies appoint too many people who are absolutely fixated on profit and not focused on relationship.
And relationship for the sake of purpose. Now coming to your thoughts on purpose,